Thank you for listening to Keith's Sports News. Hey there. How's it going, folks? Welcome to KSN episode 28. That's right. And I am in a different room. Yes. Same house, different room. I am in the kitchen. Yes. This is a spot that I've been thinking about doing the episodes for quite some time. So I figured, why not this episode? Because there is a lot to talk about. There's a lot to talk about. And I'm going to do my best to talk about all the things that I want to talk about in this episode. We'll see how this goes, this new location, for me at least, because you don't really have to watch the video. It's just me talking to the webcam, so you can watch this while you're, or not watch, you can listen to this while you're doing something. That's what I do with other sports talk shows, because it's only audio, right? Some shows there's video, meaning it's also on TV or online, but most of it just audio. Alright? So, anyways, I think this is going to be my permanent spot for the KSN episodes for now. I might do some episodes outdoors. It's been a while since I've done an episode outdoors, and I thought about doing an episode outdoors in a future KSN episode. It'll be only, I don't know when I'll do it, but it will be a pro wrestling talk episode. And it's going to be, remember how I talked about the Super Bowls that I watched live? I'm going to do an episode of me talking about the WrestleManias that I watched live. And I'm going to do that before this year's WrestleMania. Alright? We are a few weeks away from WrestleMania 41. So I could do it maybe the Friday before WrestleMania weekend. Maybe. I'll have to see. And if I do that, I'll probably do it outside. Because a lot of WrestleManias, well, maybe not a lot, but some of the WrestleManias were outdoors, but a lot of them actually are indoors. But I like it when it's outdoors because it just looks cooler that way. Anyways, the shirt that I'm wearing. So now you can watch this part of the video if you want to see the shirt that I'm wearing. That's right, XFL. This is the old XFL logo, not the first one. It was the second one from 2020. I really like this logo. This was the 2020 logo. Man, I love the XFL in 2020. I loved it. I was locked in. And here's how I got really into it, or looking forward to it. At the time, I was sick of the NFL. I didn't like what the league was doing at the time. I really didn't like the NFL back then. I just could not wait for spring football, XFL, to come back. And man, I loved it. Great season. I was following the Houston Roughnecks when they were wearing those good uniforms, the great Houston Roughnecks uniforms at the time. And then, unfortunately, COVID happened. COVID just had to happen when sports were getting hot. That's right. COVID happened. It was, what was it, March 13th, I believe? Mid-March of 2020. Just over 5 years ago. Okay? Yes, if you can't tell, I'm sitting down. All right. The last few episodes, I was standing up. I feel like I need to sit down for this episode because there is a lot to talk about. I forgot to mention one thing before I continue my talk, and I want to apologize that the last episode ended suddenly. I somehow ran out of storage. Yeah. You're probably wondering, how in the hell can you run out of storage on your laptop? Well, it's because, quick story, I have an external hard drive, okay? I have a lot of video files, I do, from years ago. Some of them, or a lot of them, I upload them to YouTube. There are some where I'll never upload them. It's only to myself, okay? So, a lot of them I do keep them, okay? So, eventually, over time, the storage gets full. And that's pretty much what happened. And I thought I had enough storage to record the last episode of KSN. And most of the episodes are around 30 minutes. But that last episode, I knew it would be a lot longer than that because there was a lot to talk about. I will say this episode will also be more than 30 minutes because remember, I do 2 episodes a week, mainly Mondays and Fridays, where I talk about what happened after the weekend and on Monday's episode, and on Friday's episode I'll talk about what's going to happen or preview the weekend, the big sports events of the weekend. So the last episode was long, meaning this episode will also be longer because I am going to talk about what I saw and what I heard in this sports weekend. But I made sure, thought I heard someone. I made sure that I have enough storage to record this episode. So yeah, but basically basically what happened, I ran out of storage. I'm using OBS to record my talk, and when you run out of storage, the video will stop recording, and it'll give me a window that says there is not enough space to record, so the video file ended, the recording ended, and the video file would save on what you recorded. But when I ran out of storage, I was pretty much done talking. I was already wrapping things up because that episode was about 50 minutes, just about. So yeah, this episode will probably be just as long, if not longer. All right. So, what was I saying? I forgot. sometimes I'm all over the place. I'll talk about one thing that leads to another thing, but then I want to get back to what I was talking about before, and then you don't remember. But then a little later, you'll remember. I might remember what I was trying to say. Yeah, these episodes, pretty much would record my whole talk in one recording. I don't do series of clips and then put them together because that takes more time. So, and luckily I have an option to pause the recording. I think I did that before where I had to sneeze or blow my nose. Like, no one wants to see or hear me blow my nose on on this channel, me talking. That's why that's why they have something called a cough button for, broadcasting announcers. I always thought of that when I was a little younger. I'm like, how can the announcers call a whole game without coughing or sneezing? Oh, there's a button called the cough button. You push that button. I don't know if you hold the button or you just push it, but then you do what you have to do, So, yeah. Oh yeah, I was talking about COVID. COVID happened a little over 5 years ago. I was gonna do an episode back in mid-March, a couple of weeks ago, me talking about the 5-year anniversary of COVID, but I kind of forgot about it. But there was a lot to talk about in sports. Yeah, man, when COVID had to happen during spring season in sports, which we are right now, okay? It just had to happen, man. It had to happen in the middle of the XFL season. The Houston Roughnecks were undefeated. They were actually the best team. They were the only undefeated XFL team. When COVID happened, I was like, are you effing kidding me? XFL came back 19 years later, and it was another. The season was a success, but unfortunately, COVID shut down the league. And I was like, wow. That is just like, talk about bad, unlucky timing that had to happen. And when COVID happened, that was right before March Madness began. March Madness was canceled. I was like, wow. It was that serious at the time. You know? I felt bad for the players, the coaches, the fans of March Madness, you know? And then, the rest of 2020, we were on break. Basically, the sports world was on break for a while. And then when sporting events came back, no fans. Eventually, oh yeah, when COVID happened, the MLB season was getting ready to begin, but they didn't begin their season until July 20th or something like that. Yeah, you had to wait another 4 months. And that season was short, only 60-game season. And then, of course, the NFL later in the year, they would begin their season. Basically, they would begin their season the way their season has always been, except without fans. Although I remember some games had to be postponed because some players would have COVID. Man, it was serious, man. Crazy. But I do remember 2020 quite well for sports. And with all due respect, I don't count 2020 for any sports leagues. So, for example, the LA Dodgers, they won the World Series in 2020. I don't count that season because that World Series, they played the whole World Series in Arlington, the new ballpark of the Texas Rangers. There was no home field advantage because of no fans. So, I don't count that season. And it was short. Yes, the Dodgers were the best team, but I don't count that season. But last year, they won a full season World Series. Okay? I believe the last big sporting event before COVID happened, well, I guess it the Super Bowl, or well, maybe the Daytona 500 in NASCAR, because the Daytona 500 is always the Sunday after the Super Bowl, so 1 week after the Super Bowl. That was in February. There was still a full crowd capacity, so that was like a few weeks before COVID shut down the league. I believe that was like the last big sporting event. I don't remember because, the XFL, they would begin their season the weekend after the Super Bowl as well. Okay? And halfway through the season, the league shut down because of COVID. So, it's a shame. I believe in tennis, I don't know if Indian Wells was able to finish their tournament in March of 2020, because I believe when sports leagues started when sports leagues decided to go on break or on pause, postponing their events, I believe that was on a Thursday or a Friday. Yeah. So tennis was either, yeah, I believe tennis was in the Indian Wells at the time. I think Indian Wells was coming to an end. Let me look that up right now. See, was there an Indian Wells Open in 2020? Let me look that up right now, real quick. I don't think so. Well, I think there was, but then when the tournament was coming close to an end, I think they had to cancel it. Yep, there wasn't a 2020 Indian Wells. Maybe there was, but there was no winner because of COVID. So let's see. Oh, they never even began their tournament. It says on March 8, 2020, the tournament was postponed and later canceled. Okay. All right. So yeah, it was probably the Daytona 500, the last big sporting event before COVID, because a lot of people do watch that. So, but if I have to, if obviously, if COVID never happened, obviously the XFL would have be a success in 2020. If I were to bring back, if I were to wish a sports league didn't get canceled during COVID, it would have to be the XFL, because the XFL was in the middle of their season. I would have that. I would pick that over March Madness, because March Madness never began. They had their, I believe they were in the middle of their conference tournament in 2020, but the actual March Madness, the round of 64, they never began. XFL was in the middle of their season. That was my thing back then to watch. So, if COVID were to happen after the XFL season, I would be like, well, at least it didn't happen during the XFL season. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, things went downhill after that for the XFL. They didn't come back in 2021. They didn't come back in 2022. However, the USFL came back in 2022. XFL came back in 2023, but they changed the logo. I was disappointed when they changed the logo. When their current logo, well, it's not current anymore because it's now the UFL. XFL and USFL merged to form the UFL. But when they changed the logo after this one, I didn't like that idea. But the logo itself, it was pretty cool. I mean, it was totally different, but like this logo's the thing, I think I know why they changed it, because Vince McMahon brought back the XFL in 2020. He was the one that introduced the XFL in 2001. The 2001 XFL season didn't go well, and it never came back until 2020. I really don't know what made Vince McMahon to decide to bring back the XFL 19 years after it failed. I don't know what made him decided to bring it back. Maybe he just thought, well, since I'm getting older, maybe I should give this a shot one more time. And I think another reason, I believe, well, this is what I think on why he brought back the XFL in 2020, because I think a lot of people were getting sick of what the National Football League was doing at the time, including myself. So I think that made Vince, not many people like the NFL on what they're doing. Well, I think this gives me a chance to bring back the XFL 2020. He announced that in 2018, so meaning the uh, the 8 teams had 2 full years to get a roster, coaching staff, and all that. And yeah, I believe a lot of people were watching the XFL in 2020. It's just a shame, man. It's a damn shame that there was no winner, no champion. Like, what if he brought. Like, what if the XFL came back in 2019? You know what I'm saying? Like, COVID, man. Ay, ay, ay. Whatever. 5 years ago, we gotta move on. Gotta move on. But that was the most disappointing part of the sports, my favorite sports leagues at the time, man, because it was in the middle of the XFL season. Yeah, and I wonder why the USFL decided to come back after what 35 plus years later. Yeah, USFL was a thing, was a league in the mid 80s, I believe, for 3 seasons. Might have been 84, 85, and 86. And then after their last season, I think most of their players went to the NFL, and that's why the league, the USFL, folded. But it's kind of weird. The USFL came back over 35 years later in 2022. Maybe the reason why they came back was because the XFL didn't come back in 2021. That's my prediction. I don't that might be the truth, I don't know, but otherwise, like, what if Vince McMahon, let's be real here. What if Vince McMahon never brought back the XFL in 2020? Would the USFL still come back in 2022? I don't think so. And if that's the case, then there wouldn't be a UFL. There wouldn't be spring football. So we have to thank Vince McMahon. I believe Vince McMahon, he's the one that started it all. Without him, without the XFL in 2020, I believe there wouldn't be a USFL in 2022, and certainly there wouldn't be a UFL, United Football League spring season football. We wouldn't have any of that. I believe that is what I think. If not, then what is it? What do you think? I don't know. But when the USFL came back in 2022, I was looking forward to it because, you know, I wanted spring football to come back after the XFL success in 2020 until COVID happened. I became a USFL fan. All right. So, but the USFL in 2022 was not as great as the XFL was in 2020. And the reason why I say that is because if you remember the XFL in 2020, all 8 teams played in their own stadium, their own city. USFL didn't do that in 2022 and 2023. I was like, what is this? Half the games are played in Birmingham, you know? And when Birmingham isn't playing, when you have 2 teams that are playing in Birmingham and neither team is Birmingham, you have no one showing up in attendance. That's stupid. Like, I don't know what they were thinking. Like, they thought this would work? No. No. So when I found out that they did that, I was like, what is this? Like, let me see. What were the teams in the USFL in 2022? Because some of the USFL teams aren't in today's UFL. Okay, the first season of the USFL was in 1983, ceased 1986. Wow, there was 18 teams back then in the 80s. I didn't know that. But then when the UFL or USFL came back in 2022, there were 8 teams. Okay, so Yeah, here's an example. A team back then, the Philadelphia Stars, they were not playing their games in Philadelphia. They were playing in Detroit, Michigan, in Ford Field. Why? Why couldn't they play in the Eagles Stadium? Or do they have a soccer stadium? Why couldn't they play in there? You know, the DC Defenders, one of the current UFL teams, they play in a soccer stadium. So I don't know why Philadelphia couldn't do that. You know, um, yeah. There's a stadium called Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium, formerly known as Fawcett Stadium. It's a football stadium in Canton, Ohio. It's for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Okay? They had two teams playing there from the USFL, New Jersey Generals and the Pittsburgh Maulers. Why? If you're going to use a stadium in Canton, Ohio, then why isn't there a team called Canton, Ohio? It doesn't make any sense, you know? And New Orleans had a team. Yes, I live in South Louisiana. New Orleans is the closest team, so I was hoping I was wondering at the time, did New Orleans, are they playing their games in Tulane Stadium? I don't think they're playing in the Superdome, home of the Saints. I think they're playing in Tulane Stadium. Nope, they're playing in Birmingham, Alabama. When I found that out, I was like, what are y'all doing? Y'all didn't have the money? Is that why they can't play in their own stadiums? However, the Michigan Panthers, they were playing their games in Detroit, Michigan. It doesn't make sense. I guess they didn't have the money. If y'all didn't have the money back then, why did you bring back the league? Why did you bring back the league in the first place, you know? So that kind of pissed me off when I found that out, that not all the teams were playing in their home stadium. That's not fair. Let's say, you know, New Orleans playing I don't know, Memphis. Actually no, Memphis, they were playing their games in Memphis. Houston Gamblers, they were playing their games in Memphis. So, I don't remember where Houston played New Orleans. Were they playing in Memphis or were they playing in Birmingham? I guess whoever was the home team. New Orleans, if they were the home team, they would be playing in Birmingham. It just doesn't make sense. But when the XFL came back in 2023, they were doing it the right way. Yeah, I guarantee you, more people were watching the XFL than the USFL. And then everyone, including myself, wanted both leagues to merge. And that's what they did. That's one thing they listened to the fans. Let's merge the leagues. And that's what they did. In 2024, last year, that's where it became the United Football League. But when they merged leagues, I knew they weren't going to keep all the teams from both leagues. If that was the case, it would have been 16, right? So unfortunately, some of the teams could not be in the UFL, and New Orleans was one of them. Because I would love to go to a New Orleans Breaker game, because it's, you know, not that far away from me. Although they never played any of their games in New Orleans, so never mind. So the closest team to me is the Houston Roughnecks. Okay? I've never been to a Roughnecks game. When the Roughnecks came back in 2023, they changed their uniforms and the logo. Now, I do kind of like their current logo, but the uniform itself, the colors, not a fan of. They have the worst looking uniforms, in my opinion. All the other UFL teams have much better uniforms to me. Here's my issue. Yeah, I never got a chance to talk about the UFL in the last episode of KSN, not only because I forgot about it, but I was running out of storage. So I'm going to talk about that first before I talk about all the other big sporting events. So, for some reason, Houston had two teams, one in the XFL and one in the USFL. The Houston Roughnecks were from the XFL, and the Houston Gamblers were from the USFL. So when I found out that both leagues were going to merge, I'm like, are they going? They're not going to keep both Houston teams. They're going to keep one of them. And I was a big Roughnecks fan, kind of. I was in 2020, no doubt. I love their 2020 uniforms. 2023, I didn't like their uniforms, but they were a great team. The head coach was Wade Phillips. Now Wade Phillips is the San Antonio Brahmas coach. Okay? So, it doesn't make sense. Here's what I'm talking about. I think you might know what I'm talking about. So when both leagues merged, I found out that they were keeping the Houston Roughnecks. And when I found out, I didn't really have a reaction to that because I was like, oh, okay, they're keeping the Roughnecks instead of the Gamblers because I think more people follow the Roughnecks. Also, I have two Roughneck shirts. Yeah. I believe either I got one of the shirts for Christmas, if not both for Christmas. This shirt, I have two XFL shirts with this old logo from 2020. I bought those online. I also have a USFL shirt. I bought that online. I might have bought one or two Roughneck shirts, or one of the two Roughneck shirts, and I think I did, meaning the other one I got for Christmas. So part of me wanted them to keep the Roughnecks because I have two Roughneck shirts. I like to wear the shirts whenever they're playing to show my support. But I just don't like their uniforms. So when they decided to keep the Roughnecks, I was like, all right, they better change their uniforms because I don't think anyone likes their uniforms. The 3-color helmet, what is that? Most football helmets, it's one color, meaning majority of that helmet is one color. No, they have like 3 different colors. It doesn't make sense, compared to their 2020 uniforms. So they joined the UFL, but here's my problem. Not only they're still wearing those weird looking uniforms, the UFL has 2 conferences. One called the USFL Conference, and the other one's called the XFL Conference. So they had this idea where, both XFL and USFL merged, right? So I was like, okay, it's going to be 8 teams, meaning it's going to be 4 USFL teams and 4 XFL teams. Well, I mentioned that the Houston Roughnecks were an XFL team. So you think they're in the XFL conference, right? No. For some reason, they're in the USFL conference, and that doesn't make any sense to me. If they're in the USFL conference, then why aren't they called the Houston Gamblers? Because the Houston Gamblers were an USFL team. Here's another stupid thing. I mentioned that Wade Phillips was the Roughnecks head coach in 2023. Well, the reason why he is no longer the Roughnecks coach is because, for some stupid reason, I find this stupid, they decided to keep the Gamblers roster, but keep the Roughnecks name. So technically, to me, they are the Houston Gamblers, but for some reason, they are the Houston Roughnecks. They're in the USFL conference, which doesn't make sense because the Roughnecks were an XFL team. So why aren't they called the Gamblers? Plus, the Gamblers have much better uniforms, in my opinion. If they really kept the Gamblers name, then I would still wear my Roughneck shirts. I would. But no. I don't get that. I don't like that. So technically, you have 5 XFL teams and 3 USFL teams. That's one thing I don't like on what they did. You decided to keep the Gamblers roster, but keep the Roughnecks name. What the heck? Makes no sense. Okay, I guess more people were watching the Roughnecks, but I guarantee you, I bet you, Roughnecks fans at the time, including me, were disappointed that, Wade Phillips is not the coach anymore. Because the Roughnecks team in 2023 was a really good team. Roughnecks were a trash team last year, and I think they're going to be a trash team again. Because I found out on what happened in their first game. Yeah, the first game of the 2025 UFL season, the Roughnecks were playing at home against the St. Louis Battlehawks. Here's another stupid thing that happened in that first game. Well, no, it didn't happen at the game, but hear me out here. This game was on at the exact same time with the Houston Astros game. The Houston Astros were also playing at Houston at the exact same time as the Houston Roughnecks game. That's stupid. You can't not do that. Somehow there's probably some fans that are a fan of both Roughnecks and Astros. And the fact that you put them on at the exact same time is stupid. Yes, because the MLB season also began on Thursday. UFL, their first game was on a Friday night. And you have both Houston teams, Astros and Roughnecks, both playing in Houston at the exact same time. Stupid. And that is why the Roughnecks game has had poor attendance. I bet you, if that game wasn't on at the exact same time as the Houston Astros game, there would be more fans in attendance. So I had a problem with that. Whoever made this UFL schedule, you should have known better. You should have known better. It's ridiculous. You cannot compete with the Houston Astros because Houston Astros, they're the number one Houston team because of their golden era that they had. Back then, the Houston Texans were not a good team. So was the Houston Rockets. So, it would have been better if the Houston Roughnecks were playing a day game. So, Roughnecks got crushed. I was not surprised. St. Louis Battlehawks are usually a good team. Let me tell you, the Battlehawks should have been in the championship game last year. It would have been fantastic because the championship game was also in in St. Louis. I don't know where the championship game is going to be at this year's. In my opinion, in my opinion, the championship game, whichever team has the better record, I think they should be hosting it. So last year, the best team, the team that had the best record was Birmingham. Birmingham should have hosted the championship game. I say that because, like, how many Birmingham fans went to the St. Louis stadium when they were in the championship game? Not very many. But I mentioned St. Louis should have been in that championship game, and if they were in that championship game, I guarantee you, that stadium would be full of fans. Mainly St. Louis fans. Meaning, okay, the Battlehawks would have gotten that home field advantage. But nope, I watched that game live, a lot of empty seats. That's a problem. That's why I said the better team should be hosting the championship game. If it, in that case, it would have been Birmingham. Okay, yeah, you wouldn't have much empty stands in Birmingham because the Birmingham team is playing in Birmingham. That's another thing that I don't like. It should not be like that. Listen, this UFL league will never be as popular as college football or the NFL or even the CFL. CFL, I love that league. Every year, their championship game is called the Grey Cup. Last year's Grey Cup was in Vancouver. The two teams that were playing in it were Toronto and Winnipeg. Toronto fans have to fly all the way to Vancouver to see the Grey Cup, and that's what they did. There weren't a lot of empty seats in Vancouver, BC Place, for the Grey Cup. So, I know this is only the UFL's second season. Technically, this is year number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. XFL 2020, USFL 2022, XFL and USFL in 2023, UFL in 2024. Now it's UFL 2025. Technically, this is the 5th year for spring football. So, we'll see how it goes. And I know I'm talking about the spring football league so long. This episode might be more than an hour. I'm sure if you're into spring football like me, thank you so much for still sticking around, listening to this episode. All right. So, I'll try to follow the UFL games whenever I have a chance to tune in. If not, then I'll watch the highlight video on YouTube. Yeah, they have a YouTube channel. Let me tell you something. Their YouTube channel has how many subscribers? Let me look that up right now. Yeah, they have a YouTube channel where they would upload their highlight videos. Their YouTube channel has over 172,000 subscribers. Now, let me say this. The reason why that channel has that many subscribers is because that YouTube channel used to be the XFL's YouTube channel. Yeah, that's the truth. That is the truth, man. Yep. So, yeah, Houston Roughnecks had poor attendance because the Houston Astros are playing at the exact same time in Houston as well. All right. So, that was the first game. The St. Louis Battlehawks crushed the Roughnecks 31-6. The second game was on a Saturday afternoon. San Antonio Brahmas at the Arlington Renegades. Now, let me tell you this. The Renegades also had poor attendance. And the Renegades, they play at the Texas Rangers' old stadium. Okay? Used to be called Globe Life Park. Okay? And now I believe it's called Choctaw Stadium or something like that. Yeah, the stadium that where the Renegades play used to be the Texas Rangers Stadium. So the question is, did the Texas Rangers play at the exact same time as the Arlington Renegades? The answer is no. I thought they were, actually. I thought the Rangers were also playing at the exact same time as the Arlington Renegades. Yes, the Texas Rangers were also playing at Arlington, but it wasn't on at the exact same time as the Renegades. My issue is that the UFL picked a bad weekend to start their season. Why couldn't they start their season a month ago? I mentioned earlier, the XFL, they would begin their season the weekend after the Super Bowl. Why couldn't the UFL do the same? I post some comments on their YouTube channel, mainly their highlight videos. Someone said to me, well, I think because we need a break from American football for a little bit. I'm like, okay, that's fair. But you still could have started the season a couple of weeks ago, before March Madness began. Why didn't they thought of that? They picked this weekend, in the middle of March Madness. MLB season began their season the same weekend. Not a good idea. Sunday had 2 games. Okay, the Renegades, they won their game easily, 33-9. Sunday had 2 games. I didn't see the first one. I was still sleeping, but I did watch the highlight video on YouTube. It was the Michigan Panthers taking on the Memphis Showboats. And unfortunately, the Showboats also have poor attendance. However, here's what's exciting. The announcer at that game, Joe Tessitore. Yes, the great Joe Tessitore. He is one of the big voices of ESPN's college football. And he's also the voice of WWE SmackDown on the USA Network on Friday nights. I find that surprising that Joe Tessitore is one of the voices of the UFL because he's doing Friday Night SmackDown. So when I heard his voice, I'm like, oh my gosh, we got Joe Tessitore calling UFL games? That's great. And his partner, Greg McElroy. Yes, those 2 guys would call SEC football games on ABC. I like those guys. I don't know if Fox or ESPN or ABC is going to be hosting the championship game. But if it's ABC or ESPN, I wonder if it's going to be Joe Tessitore and Greg McElroy, the announcers. Guess we'll find out. The Fox announcers are Kurt Menefee and Joel Klatt, I think. Yeah, the first 2 games were on Fox. So, first game was at Houston on Fox with those announcers. Second game was in Arlington, was also on Fox with those same announcers. So yeah, those announcers, they just had to travel from Houston to Arlington. And the last game was the defending champions Birmingham Stallions against the DC Defenders. Technically Birmingham, they won 3 straight spring football championships. They won the USFL championships in 2022 and 2023, and they won last year's UFL championship, so they technically won it 3 years in a row. So they took on the DC Defenders in DC, and shout out to the DC fans. That's right, they had a great crowd. DC has a great crowd. If you watch that game, you know that the DC Defenders, they'll have that tradition of the, what's it called? The long snake in the stands where there's so many cups stacked together. That's crazy. I don't know how that tradition started. Because I mentioned earlier, they play in a soccer stadium. So I wonder if their soccer fans do the same thing with the snake. the Snake of Cups stacked together. That's crazy. Yeah, they did that in 2020 as well. They were an XFL team in 2020. They have great fans, so shout out to those fans. And they beat the Stallions 18-11. I watched mainly the second half of that game. I decided to tune in, and I was kind of watching it. So good game by the defenders. And I saw a comment on their YouTube channel. It's kind of funny. I'm going to read this here. Someone comment on this. Let me see if I can find it. Where is it? Oh yeah, here it is. I was trying to find the video first so I can go to the comments. Someone comment on this video, the highlight video of the Stallions and Defenders game. This person says, duh. Listen, let me start over. The DC Defenders, defensive defenders, defensively defended to decisively defeat the defending champions. That's a lot of D's, man. That's a lot of D's. That's very clever of him. Yeah. By the way, their former coach, I don't know, I forgot his name. The DC Defenders coach from last season. Apparently, he is now going to be the new coach of Tennessee State, I believe. That's weird. But okay, then. Skip Holtz is still the Birmingham coach. And there you have it. That was week 1 of the UFL. Let's see what happens next week. So yeah, I know that DC has great fans. St. Louis Battlehawks has great fans too. So I'm going to try and watch their game, their first home game. Do they play next week at home? Let me see. They do. They play at home next Sunday, or this upcoming Sunday, at 5:30 p.m. Central on FS1 against the San Antonio Brahmas. So I'm sure they'll have a lot of fans at their games. We'll see how many fans Michigan Panthers will have. Michigan Panthers will be playing in Detroit on Friday night, 7 p.m. on Fox Central Time. We'll see how many their fans come to Ford Field. That's weird. They're playing at Ford Field. That's a big stadium for, NFL. DC Defenders, they're not playing in the Washington Commanders Stadium. So, anyways. I think the Roughnecks are going to be the worst team after that performance. And if they're going to have another trash season like they did last year, I think they should get rid of the Roughnecks and bring back the Seattle Sea Dragons. Do you remember that team? That team had great fans too. And I wonder the reason why they got rid of the Sea Dragons is because they're very far away from all the other teams. Is that the reason why they got rid of them? I hope not, but they should bring that team back. Plus, there's already 3 teams in Texas anyways, right? I know Texas is a huge state with 3 huge cities, but I don't know, that's just me. I just hope that Birmingham doesn't win the championship again. We got to have a different team win it. And I said earlier, whichever is the best team should be hosting the championship game. So if DC is going to be the best team, if they have the best record at the end of the regular season, they should be hosting the championship. I would be totally fine with that because you're not gonna have empty seats, Unlike last year's championship, it was San Antonio against Birmingham, Anyways, Sorry for talking so long about spring football, but there you have it. Um, I'm not going to watch every single game, but I will say this though. If I miss, I'll try to watch some of the games live, but if I miss a game, then I'll watch their highlight video on YouTube. Okay? I'll do my best. All right? Boy, oh boy. It's time to drink some water before we talk about what other sporting events happened. I believe this past weekend, probably the biggest sports weekend so far of 2025. I'm not counting the Super Bowl. I know the Super Bowl is the biggest championship event ever. But in terms of more than one big events going on the same weekend, this is the weekend. That's why this episode is much longer. All right. So we talked about the UFL. What else is there to talk about? The MLB season. Let's talk about that. They began their season. Oh yeah, my last episode was on Thursday instead of Friday because Thursday was opening day. And I did say this, in my opinion, opening day should be on Monday, which is today. This is a Monday episode. I would prefer if opening day would start today. Because opening day was on a Thursday, right? And Thursday, Friday. You know, having your opening day series during March Madness, not a good idea. Opening day used to be on a Monday. What's going on Monday tonight? Not much. I'm talking about for other sporting events. I mean, yeah, it's probably another night for the NBA and NHL. Okay, but you don't have March Madness going on, right? It used to be like that. MLB used to begin their season on opening day. I miss that. I liked it like that. Yeah, Monday's a school day and a work day, but so is a Thursday. So you got to pick one or the other. I believe Monday was better. So, yeah, it would usually begin on the first week of April around April Fool's Day. Tomorrow is April Fool's Day. Okay? So, it is what it is. So, I'll tell you what. I did watch some of the very first game, which was the Milwaukee Brewers against the New York Yankees, because not only it was the very first game of the season. Well, I'm not counting the Japanese games in between the Cubs and Dodgers in Japan. I did not watch any of that. I didn't even watch the highlights. I had no interest. I didn't really. I just had no interest, especially mainly because it was on Fox. Not a fan of MLB on Fox, but anyways. The first real opening day game was the Milwaukee Brewers against the New York Yankees. I decided to tune into some of that, mainly because Joe Buck came back. Joe Buck came back, and he did great. He did great. He actually did a call when Yankees hit a home run. Joe Buck would say, "See ya," because that's what Michael Kay says. The voice of the Yankees on the Yes Network, he would say "see ya" whenever the Yankees get a home run. And a lot of people, some people, they find that annoying, but not me. I like when he says "see ya." That's his thing, man. Every announcer, they have their own catchphrase. There's an announcer called, well, I think he's retired now. Gary Thorne. Gary Thorne used to be the voice of the Baltimore Orioles. And whenever that team gets a home run, he would say, "Goodbye, home run." You know, that was his thing. So, yeah. The Washington Nationals announcer, I believe his name is Bob Carpenter. I think he's still the Nationals announcer. But whenever they hit a home run, he would say, "See you later." That was his thing. So I find that great about some announcers. They would have their own sayings. So Michael K, it would be "See ya." All right. Speaking of "see ya," this leads to what happened on Saturday between the same two teams, the Brewers and the Yankees. OMG. OMG. I feel like all of you know what happened. This game was history making. This will go down in the history books for the Yankees. So yeah, the Yankees, they won the first game. Second game, which was on a Saturday. Apparently they had a day off on Friday. Oh yeah, I listened to Michael K's show. He says the reason why there was a day off was because just in case if opening day gets rained out. I never thought of that, but it makes sense. But luckily, none of the games were rained out. This game on Saturday, the second game between the Brewers and the Yankees, were in the history books. I get notifications from ESPN on crazy news that happened, and this what happened. I got crazy news from this game, this particular game. Okay? This is crazy. The first 3 pitches of that game were all home runs. What? How can that happen? A lot of times, the batter, in his at-bat, a lot of times they don't swing at the first pitch unless if you're Jose Altuve from the Houston Astros. A lot of the batters don't swing at the first pitch, but these 3 guys, Paul Goldschmidt, the former St. Louis Cardinal, Cody Bellinger, the former LA Dodger, and Aaron Judge, they all hit home runs. The first 3 pitches. Unbelievable. That is insane. 3-0 after 3 pitches? Wow. Well, yo, that was something. I didn't watch the game, but I watched the highlight video. I had to watch the highlights on their YouTube channel. And Michael K, he would say, "See ya, see ya, see ya." You know, it's so funny. And then they got another home run. Wells hit a 2-run. No, it wasn't a 2-run. He hit a home run, solo home run, make it 4-0 after the first inning. Wow. The second inning got interesting. The Milwaukee Brewers scored 3 runs in the second inning to make it 4-3. I'm like, whoa, this is going to be one hell of a ball game after the second inning. The bottom of the second inning, Anthony Volpe hit a 3-run home run to make it 7-3 after the second inning. In the top of the third, the Brewers didn't get any runs. The bottom of the third, the Yankees, man, they kept pouring in on the runs. The Yankees scored 6 runs in the third inning. Aaron Judge hit another home run. Then after him, it was Jazz Chisholm Jr. He hit a home run. After the third inning, it was 13-3. Wow. Brewers got a run in the fourth inning. After being down by 10, you're now down by 9. The bottom of the fourth, Yankees got 3 more runs. Bellinger hit sacrifice fly to left. Grisham scored. And then Aaron Judge came up to bat again and he hit another home run. A 2-run shot. Make it 16-4. Yo, this is the second game. What the heck? Aaron Judge on fire. Wow. I love it. How can you not like this player? The captain, the Yankees captain, the biggest player in the league. What was he like? What's he like? 6'7" or 6'8"? Big man. The Brewers scored 2 runs in the 5th, 16-6, but you're down by 10, you know? The bottom of the 6th, the Yankees scored 4 more runs to make it 20-6. Brewers got 2 more late runs and at near the end of the game, 20-9 Yankees. My gosh, 20-9 in the second game? When's the last time that happened? Probably never. Who was the pitcher for the Brewers to begin that game? What's his name? I forgot his name. No, wait, is it him? Nestor Cortez, I believe that's him. Did he get fired after that game? How do you give up 3 home runs on the first 3 pitches in Major League Baseball? Yo, this is like a video game. Yeah, I saw a comment. Aaron Judge is playing MLB The Show 25 in real life. Yo, the Yankees, they played like, they put on a show like in Mario Super Sluggers or something like that. What the heck? I just realized that Nestor Cortez is a former Yankee. Yeah, that was him. That was him that actually gave up 3 home runs. Because he's a starting pitcher. Oh. Wow. New York Post says Nestor Cortez knows why exactly Yankees crushed him when he came back to Yankee Stadium. After Saturday's game, Nestor Cortez left Yankee Stadium without speaking to reporters. Then it says on Sunday morning. Hold on, I'm on the website. Where is it? I think it's loading up the article. Here we go. He said he acknowledged it was a brutal afternoon. He says 5 walks hurt me a lot. I feel they know what type of pitcher I am and what I do and what my strategy is. It's my fault to not have deviated from that. Yo, that is insane. I never knew he left the Yankees to go to the Brewers, and that was him. He faced his former team and he got crushed. Yo, that sounds like in a movie. That sounds like a baseball movie right there, man. You cannot make a better script than that. Aaron Judge, 4 home runs. Can you imagine if this Aaron Judge was in last year's World Series? Whew, my gosh. Wow. Yankees, they mean business. We might get a Yankees Dodgers rematch in the World Series. And if that's the case, if that's what's going to happen, I'm all in. But let's let's calm down. It's only the second game because throughout the season teams change, Great hitters will go on a slump for a little bit, then they'll come back, and then they're on a hot streak. So, but that's crazy. The second game, man, my favorite podcasts to listen to when it comes to them talking about the Major League Baseball season. Baseball Tonight with Buster Olney, The Michael K. Show, and in my opinion, the greatest sports talk show of all time, Mad Dog Unleashed with Christopher Mad Dog Russo. They are all baseball fanatics. They're all baseball guys. So I am looking forward to what they have to say, mainly from that game on Saturday. Of course, Michael K. will be talking about it because he is the voice of the Yankees. He called that game. Man, I wonder what if John Sterling called that game? John Sterling, he was he's now the former New York Yankees radio announcer. Last year was his final year. And I was mainly listening to his games. Here's what happened. A little after last year's season began, he suddenly announced his retirement, effective immediately. And then, towards the end of the season, he came back. And he did the Yankees playoff run. And I was listening to his calls, listening to his games, the games that he called live on Sirius XM, because I want to be on the last rodeo ride with Mr. Sterling. So it was great that he was able to call one last World Series. Even though the Yankees didn't win, the Yankees didn't do well, but at least he was there. He ended his career at the World Series. That's great. So, but what if he were to call that game? I don't think he would. I don't know. I would like to hear what he has to say, because I'm sure he's now watching Yankees games in his retirement. So, I wonder what he had to say. But the guy who replaced him or succeeded him is Dave Sims. Dave Sims used to be the Seattle Mariners TV announcer, and I like him too. I was listening to at the beginning of his games. He's still with Susan Waldman is still the analyst. I like her too. So it's funny. I sound like I'm a Yankee fan. I guess you can say I am. I do like Michael K. I like his show. I like John Sterling. I like Susan Waldman. I like Dave Sims. I guess I am a Yankees fan. It's funny. Years ago, I used to not like the Yankees. But now, this is a fun Yankee team to watch, in my opinion. And also, this might sound weird, I actually have a Yankees hat. However, I got that hat on my birthday a couple years ago. I didn't ask for it. One of my mom's friends decided to give me a Yankee hat. Yeah, she was in New York City at the time. She got the hat. She was like, "Hey, let me give this to your son, for his birthday." That's why I have the hat. In the last episode, I predicted my predictions of the division of the divisions, which teams will win the division. I didn't have the Yankees winning the division. I had the Boston Red Sox winning. And I believe I have the New York Yankees in second place in the American League East. I know that division's going to be tough. Speaking of the American League East, the Tampa Bay Rays, they opened their season at their new home ballpark, George Steinbrenner Field, I believe that's the name, which is also the home of the New York Yankees spring training games. Yes, the Tampa Bay Rays, they opened their season at that ballpark, and I gotta say, full crowd. Yeah, great crowd there. I watched the highlights of the first game. Was it the first game? Yeah, I think it was the first game. Let me check real quick. Yep, first game. They played against the Colorado Rockies. A walk-off home run to end the game. Wow, that was great. And we'll see how that team does. You know, you're not playing your home games in Tropicana Field. It's an indoor stadium. We'll see how it goes. The problem is they're going to have to deal with the summer heat, and it rains a lot in Tampa as well. So, but yeah, great win by them. And of course, the LA Dodgers taking care of business, the best roster. And I did say, I have the field instead of the LA Dodgers in terms of winning the World Series. I gotta be honest, I'm not that confident about that. I won't be surprised if the LA Dodgers win the World Series again. Here's the thing, do I want them to win the World Series again? No. However, if they're in the World Series again, and if they're going to win it, then I want them to win it in their home ballpark. And unfortunately, that didn't happen last year. Last year, they played the Yankees. I wanted the Yankees to win the World Series, but I just knew the Dodgers were the better team, so I wanted the LA Dodgers to win the World Series at Dodger Stadium. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. So, yeah. Anyways, yeah, great weekend for baseball. So, yeah, the Athletics used to be called the Oakland Athletics. They're in Sacramento. They play their first game in Sacramento tonight against the Chicago Cubs. I'll tune in for that game. I'm going to try to tune into that just to see what it looks like. It's going to be weird watching A's games in Sacramento. I wonder if they're going to draw a big crowd. Maybe not. And I heard it gets really hot there in the summer. That could be a problem too. Why can't they play in the Coliseum until the Vegas stadium is ready? I guess the owner decides, nope, we're no longer going to play in the Coliseum. We're going to play in this ballpark in Sacramento until the Vegas stadium is ready in a couple of years. Tampa is building a new stadium. They'll have their new stadium ready in a couple of years as well. So, yeah. But I heard on Baseball Tonight with Buster Olney, I think someone asked him a question. What if the A's were in the playoffs? Would they play their games in Sacramento if they're the home team? I guess the answer would have to be yes. But I think Buster said maybe they should play in San Francisco. Because you know how Oakland and San Francisco are two close cities? Maybe they should play in San Francisco. Unless if the San Francisco Giants are also in the playoffs as well. I don't know. I don't think the A's are going to make the playoffs. I predict that they'll come in last place. So, we'll see how the Chicago White Sox do. Last year, they only won, 42 games? Can they win 50? 45? I think that team's going to be just as bad. I heard that that team is not going to be improving. I don't know. Here's one thing I find surprising that happened this past weekend. The Atlanta Braves played a 4-game series against the San Diego Padres, and the Braves lost all 4. The Braves got swept by the Padres. Wow. Yeah, that was the Sunday night game. Technically, that was the afternoon game. That's an afternoon game because it's weird. Sunday night baseball used to be at 7 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Pacific. But for the past couple of years, it's now an hour earlier, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. But now with the games being shorter, I feel like they should go back to the 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern time slot. Because, the game was in San Diego. They started the game at 4 p.m. You call that Sunday night baseball when it's still daylight outside? 4 p.m. afternoon game? Late afternoon? It's kind of weird you call that Sunday night baseball. But that's just me. So Padres beat the Braves 5-0 in that game. Wow. By the way, the Braves are my least favorite team. They're one of my least favorite teams. That team and the Boston Red Sox. However, if you're going to ask me if that's going to be the World Series, if the World Series is Braves against Red Sox, would I watch it? Yes, I would watch it because every year I watch the World Series. If that's the World Series, I'm cheering for the Red Sox because the Braves beat the Houston Astros, my favorite team, in the World Series back in 2021. So yes, the Braves are my number 1 least favorite team. The Boston Red Sox are my second least favorite team. All right. I'm actually running out of storage. I might be using the whole storage here. I'm going to talk about March Madness in the next episode of KSN, preview the Final Four. So I guess I won't be talking about it in this episode since I am running out of storage, and this episode is over an hour, almost an hour and a half. The last thing I want to talk about is tennis. I watched the women's final between Aryna Sabalenka and Jessica Pegula. I knew Sabalenka would win in straight sets, and I knew she wouldn't lose another tournament. She lost Indian Wells 2 weeks ago, so I knew she wasn't going to lose again. I was cheering for Pegula, although Pegula was playing the Filipino player in the semifinal, and for once I was cheering against Pegula. And on the men's final, I actually completely forgot about it because it was supposed to be in the afternoon. However, it got a super long rain delay to where the match was at night. Yeah, I checked to see who won, and the match was still happening. I'm like, oh my gosh, let me tune in right now and watch the end of the match. And I was cheering for Novak. Novak was going to make history, but that didn't happen. So, yeah. Alright, guys. I gotta go. Thank you for watching, listening. Big weekend in sports. Another big weekend this weekend. See you on Friday. Thank you for listening to Keith's Sports News.